Good evening. The Board of Education of Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District is now reconvening to open session. So I wanted to let you know that there hasn't been a coup, but Mrs. Ryan is not in attendance because she's ill. So with that, we have the flag salute, and we're going to be led by Rancho Las Positas Elementary School students, Noah Jacobs, Abby Matheson, Damian Hore, and Jessica Dotz. Come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice. Thank you very much. You want to come up here and shake our hands? Give us a high five, a couple knuckles. Anything? Oh, ow. Thank you. You need this back? Top of my knuckle. As we've just come out of closed session, there was no actions taken in closed session, so there's nothing to report. Meeting procedures. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of Livermore Valley Unified School District. Primary focus is the education of students in the Livermore Valley Unified School District. During this meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information and voice their ideas concerning and regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each agenda item, there will be time for you to have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although not mandatory, we would encourage you to please fill it out and turn it in. The tan speaker card. You will then be called to speak on that topic during the communications from the public. If you wish to address a topic that is on the agenda, we encourage you to fill out the blue speaker card. And again, it's not mandatory to do so. I will call your names in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes or otherwise noted. The meetings are televised on cable channel 28 on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Is that still correct? Okay. Okay, Superintendent Bowers, we have some recognitions, I see.
And we have some changes to the agenda also. So tonight we have 2 changes to the agenda. Per board policy are written correspondence that comes to the board if it's received between the time of the published agenda and prior to 4 p.m. the day before the meeting, then it also becomes part of the formal written correspondence. We did receive one additional letter from a community member, Daniel Van Dusen. That has been shared with the board in advance, and it copies at the board table for your reference, and it will be summarized under communications from the public. The other request that we have, and I would ask that we make this adjustment to the agenda, is to move up discussion action item, ratification of contract settlement between Livermore Education Association and the district. And that's to accommodate the fact that we have some under the weather teachers and we want them to be healthy and get home to be healthy so they can return to our schools. But they definitely want to be here for that. So we'll be moving that up. And then we'll go to recognitions. Is that okay, Mr. President? I think so.
Yeah, before recognitions?
Oh, no. We'll do recognitions now.
Oh, yes.
Is that okay? Okay. So I'd like to ask Mr. Steve Martin to come up again. He's our principal from Rancho Las Positas Elementary School, and he is going to do the honors of a very special acknowledgement and introduction of some hardworking and dedicated folks who work at his site, and they are a team of teachers who are exemplary for the whole district.
Good evening and Happy New Year, school board members, Superintendent Bowers, and district leadership team. My name is Steve Martin, and I'm proud to serve as the new principal of Rancho Las Positas. Thank you for this opportunity tonight to spotlight the Rancho leadership team of, and when I call your name, I'd like you to come on up. I told them they didn't have to talk, but they have to stand up. Allison Gomes, who's our kindergarten teacher, and she was not able to make it tonight. We have Jody Givens in first grade. Yeah, you have to stand up here. We have Debbie Littlefield in 2nd grade. Terry Mastrantonio and Bill Cannon from 3rd grade. Stephanie Ezel from 4th grade. And Katie Mitchell from 5th grade. These teacher leaders truly care about their students and student learning. They embody in mind and soul my personal belief that kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. These hardworking, dedicated professionals arrive to Rancho every day with the goal of improving student achievement in a loving and nurturing environment. As part of our school leadership team, they take an active role in attending professional development sessions and collaborating with staff and colleagues at Rancho. They are a professional learning community and work phenomenal as a team. There's no drama, unlike Beverly Hills Housewives. As a new principal, I feel that I have landed in the land of Oz, and I appreciate all of their dedication and support of our students, parents, and staff. They are highly deserving of this recognition tonight. Thank you.
And for our next recognition, I would ask that Mrs. Pat Avila, our principal from Christensen Middle School, come to the podium. She's worn many hats in her career here, and she was part of a wonderful program that supports our students, particularly our needy students during the holiday time. And she wants to share with you some information, and I believe a little presentation about, or some photos.
There we go.
About a very special program that our Livermore Police Department puts on for our students.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Bowers and board members. I'm very honored to be here tonight to recognize the Livermore Police Department and their joint effort with the Livermore School District for this program. This is the 5th year that we just completed with our program called Shop with a Cop. And Shop with a Cop is a program in which we invite certain students to come and they get to spend a morning with the officers. We have several of our intimidating officers behind us, but on the day that they are shopping with their students, they have big hearts and they are teddy bears. Over the past 5 years, we have grown from 8 students in the Livermore School District this year to 18 that get to participate in the program. On a Saturday morning, the officers in uniform and patrol car arrive at the student's home. Obviously, this is already pre-planned and their parents know that they are coming. They are picked up in a Livermore squad car and driven to a destination point in which we meet. Our staging area is at the Portola Starbucks, and this year was the first year that Starbucks said we will make sure to give hot chocolate to all of the students. So there were quite a few officers and students in the Starbucks. They all get hot chocolate. Then we go to Walmart, and that is code 3, if I understand police code correctly, which is lights and sirens in a caravan. And when they arrived there, the Granada Band was playing with about 40 strong. We had the band playing, and I would like to go ahead and go through some of these pictures. As you can see, some of the officers here. Taylor Burris is actually one of our own. She's a Granada graduate from '06. And the students have a constant smile on their face when they are with the officers. It's one of the most positive things that we can have in our city, where the officers get to do something very exciting with the students. One of the students, when we asked about his experience, he said it was the best day of his life. That's Dan Cabral and his son, who has also participated with us the last 3 years. And that is the joint picture of all the students and all of the officers. And here's the Granada Band with Mr. Jones out in front, and they are playing the Rocky theme song. But there's a video. Mrs. Alba, could you play the video? And we'll see how... And we need some sound because we do have... give everyone an idea of what the arrival is like. So if you can imagine a 40-piece band playing Rocky, there you can hear the band. So people are in the parking lot trying to figure out, is this a good thing or a bad thing? But when nobody's running away and there's no guns drawn, they realize that this is a good thing. And the students go into Walmart. They are given a $125 gift card, and they are allowed to shop. The Granada leadership students were there to help the officers shop. We go through, and often the officers find that the students are very much in need of shoes or socks, and often they take their own money and they purchase extra things for the students. After we leave Walmart, we go to Emil Villas, who presents breakfast for all the students, and that's comped with the officers so that they get to have... Cindy, can we see if we can go through to the next slide just so they can see some more pictures? There's pictures of the officers having breakfast with the students in the back room, which is comped by Emil Villas. And then after that, they go to the PD and wrap gifts, and there's volunteers there. And then the students are taken home by about 11:30 that morning. So it's about a 4-hour day. The officers volunteer their time. We are very, very grateful to Livermore Police Department for allowing these officers to participate and the use of the squad cars. There we go. There's Officer Cabral and Officer Sanchez helping the students and guiding them. Sometimes the students choose not to purchase appropriate items. This young man right here, his name is Christian. He goes to Maryland, and he refused to get anything for himself. He wanted to buy for only his brothers and sisters. And this is our breakfast. And after breakfast, we went back to the PD and wrapped gifts, and they were able to take the gifts home. So I really want to make sure that Livermore Walmart, Morning Rotary, the Police Officers Association, which is the union for the police officers, Christensen PTA, but especially the Livermore Police Department and the officers who were participating on December 7th are listed here. So the two officers that were participants, Dan Cabral and Ryan Sanchez, are here tonight to receive certificates, and I'd like to give them a huge recognition for their participation. So officers, can you please come up?
Also joining us, none of this happens without leadership. This is our new chief, Michael Harris, and so we welcome him as well and thank him for his support.
Thank you very much. I certainly value the partnership that the police department and the school district have established over the years. I was just talking with Officer Sanchez yesterday about how it's grown, and I'm very excited about where it can go. This is a great example of it. And I appreciate them for their efforts very much, and I appreciate the school district. Look forward to many years of partnering. So thank you for this recognition tonight. We appreciate it.
And one other recognition I'd like to put out there is that we lost a great person in our school district that did our scorekeeping at Livermore High School. He'd been doing it, I think, since 1952, if I'm not correct. Somebody correct me. Peter Anderson. He scored the basketball games for 500, I think it was over 500 games. I remember him when I was in high school, but I didn't know who he was. So he's been there a long time. And he passed away, so I'd like to have a little moment of silence for him. Thank you for that. And next we'll have the student board member reports. Sarah, about Livermore High.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers and Board of Trustees. The Livermore High School students came back strong and dedicated to make this new year very great. We're hoping and striving to make 2014 a great year with many accomplishments. Before we kicked off for winter break, we ended the day with our annual snow day. It was bigger and better than ever. We had 20 tons of snow covering our amphitheater, along with snow coming off the rooftops. Overall, the students were overjoyed with the sight, as many of them have never even seen snow before. They had the chance to take pictures and cutouts of holiday characters like a penguin, a reindeer, and a snowman. And we also had our chamber choir singing some holiday music while kids played in the snow. And our PTSA provided hot cocoa for every single one of the students. So it was delicious and so much fun. And then we left with a bang and we came back with one too. So with sports, we came back to the school year, we came back with the new year, knowing that our girls water polo had the highest GPA out of all of the girls water polo teams in the North Coast section for the 2013 season. Really exciting. These girls are so smart and very dedicated. So it's really good news for them, and they really deserved it. Our boys basketball team is having their first home game today for the season against Cal, and we're starting it off with a lot of spirit, hopefully to bring back a great win. Over the break, we had 3 students who went to London to be in the holiday parade. We had a senior named Sherry Winter go for cheerleading, Caitlin Wildman for dance, and Riker Johnson for band. LHS was well represented and had a great time in London. It was really exciting getting to see familiar faces on a different part of the globe. For clubs, LHS has built their own chapter of the National Honor Society. This is a really prestigious club that's nationally recognized. Students have to have a 3.5 or 3.6 GPA to get admitted. So they've already started to kick off the club, and we have over 70 members, which is one of our biggest clubs on campus. The club goes around doing community service around the city and really tries to share all the things that they can offer to the city. And they would like to invite all of you guys to the induction ceremony on January 29th in the theater at LHS at 7 p.m. Our International Student Exchange Club has picked their new rep, who they will be sending to a different country this summer. I'm not sure who it is yet and where their location will be, but it's very exciting that they're able to fund a whole another student going to a whole new country. As for our leadership classroom, we've gotten a whole bunch of new spirit items in, which is very exciting. We have some new rally towels, 2 different shades with 2 different designs, and students are very excited to twirl them around. We have some really cozy sweatpants that students can rep some spirit all around campus on the everyday basis. And lastly, we have some new reusable water bottles that are to encourage our students to keep using our hydration station as we're eliminating waste every day. The annual Mr. Cowboy pageant has kicked off by announcing the nominees and congratulating this week in class. And it really looks like a great bunch of boys that will really represent the male student body well. And next week we'll be having our whiteout against Cal at the boys basketball game. A whiteout is where everyone on the home side dresses in all white and really makes a whole scene and is really bright and really noticed. So it's very exciting. And for now, that's all that's going on at Livermore High School. Thank you.
That's all that's going on at Livermore High? That's all? The time on that induction ceremony was 7 a.m.?
7 p.m.
Oh, whew. Thank you. Haley, what's going on at Granada?
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Rogie, and fellow board members. We're now in our 4th week of trimester 2 at Granada and off to a good start after returning from winter break. In the world of sports, our girls basketball team took 2nd in the West Coast Jamboree over break, and they're playing away at Carondelet tonight. Our boys basketball are 8-3 and will be hosting De La Salle tonight. JV and varsity boys soccer will be playing Foothill tonight at Foothill, and JV and varsity girls soccer are hosting Foothill tonight. Varsity wrestling hosted the MAC Classic with 43 teams on Saturday, this past Saturday, and they're going to be hosting another wrestling tournament this Saturday, January 11th. So it's been a busy couple weeks for wrestling, but really excited to see how well they're doing. Before we left for break and leadership, we hosted a Spirit Week full of lots of fun holiday wear and the day with hitting the slopes. So it was interesting to see students decked out in all their winter gear when it was pretty warm outside. So it's an interesting week. And before we left, we also collected all of our gifts for the families, veterans, and homeless individuals that we adopted over the holiday season, and we delivered them to the veterans halls and the various households. So it was really rewarding to see that we were able to give back through the whole community, and not just in Livermore, but in the Alameda County as well. We are happy to continue the tradition of giving back that we really hold near to our hearts in our 2nd trimester of leadership, which is called Granada Gives Back. Now we're going to be focusing on completing our fundraising to build a water well in Ghana and becoming a school eligible to enter We Day, which is a day that's dedicated to service. We're a bunch of people, celebrities, students, businesses, they all come together to celebrate service and to raise awareness for how we can use service in our day-to-day lives and how companies and individuals can give back to their communities and abroad. So we're hoping to become a school eligible for We Day so we can send some students to bring back new and fresh ideas to our Granada Leadership Program. And upcoming school-wide activities, our 6-man clubs from Livermore and Granada will be participating in a benefit game to raise money for the Jimmy V Foundation on January 25th. So usually our basketball teams are competing on the court, but instead our fans are going to be competing against one another in a charity game. So by charging at the door and by charging for concessions, they're going to be hosting a game where all the benefits will give back to fundraising for cancer research. So there will be more details coming soon, but mark your calendars for January 25th. Also, the Red Cross Club will be hosting a blood drive on Thursday, January 16th, and any student 16 or older can participate in the event. We've had a great amount of success with the past blood drives, and we're looking forward to another successful blood drive at Granada. That's all that's going on for now, and thank you.
Now we go to employee associations. Good evening.
Good evening, Board Member Rogie, President Runyon's gone, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board. Welcome back. I'm not quite back into the swing of things. My brain still thinks we're on break. But hopefully we have a lot of rested teachers. When I am going around to different sites, they seem to be smiling and happy and rested, so those breaks come at perfect times. Ended up the last week of the winter break by attending Mendenhall's breakfast and saw some of the worst holiday sweaters and sweatshirts in the world. Luckily, I was not part of the competition, but they had a wonderful breakfast, and it was great to see the spirit at that site. This week, I'm proud to announce that at our Rep Council meeting, we are going to premiere our first LEA-produced professional development video on data teams. And this was done by our communications chair, Noah King, and the 3rd grade team at Maryland Avenue. So it's a 20-minute professional development piece that they're sharing in hopes of showing other colleagues, this is how we do it. You might be able to take some ideas, tweak it, use it for yourself, And so we're unveiling that on Thursday, and then we'll be putting it up on our website. And then finally, I would like to invite our school board members to join Jenny, myself, and some of our exec board members to the Al Costa CTA School Board Breakfast. It will be February 8th, and I'm pleased to tell you that because of a lot of pressure, I was able to move it from Walnut Creek to Pleasanton Hilton, which I guess is now Pleasanton Doubletree. So you will have very short commute times, and we will not have to get up at the crack of dawn to make it up to Walnut Creek. I'm not sure about the status of the bacon, but I hear they do a nice breakfast. So I have invitations for you all, and I would be most honored if you could join us.
Thank you. And now comes the time where we have communications from the audience. If you'd like to address a topic that is not on this evening's agenda, now is the time to do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and each speaker may speak once. Ferris Bueller? Okay, move on. Correspondence. Mr. Dunlop.
I'm substituting for the clerk, who is sitting in a different chair. And so we have a couple of pieces of correspondence. One is from the audit team that comes and does our audit regularly, and so I'll read their letter to the board. As we've audited, well, I won't read the whole letter, I'll read extracts from the letter. We've audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District for the year ending June 30, 2013. No new accounting policies were adopted, and the application of existing policies was not changed during the 2012-2013 year. We noted no transaction entered into by the governmental unit during the year for which there is a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in a proper period. Management's estimates of the revenue limit is based on an estimated state apportionment schedule and other factors. We evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to develop the revenue limit in determining that it is reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. Now we get to the good ones. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing our audit. The professional standards require us to accumulate all known and likely misstatements identified during the audit, other than those that are clearly trivial, and communicate them to the appropriate level of management. There were no misstatements identified during our audit that were communicated to management. With respect to the supplementary information accompanying the financial statements, we made certain inquiries of management and evaluated the form, content, and method of preparing the information to determine that the information complies with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And so basically there were no findings for the audit. So we appreciate their letter to inform us of that. We also had a communication from the public, and this is from Daniel Van Duzen, and he is a senior operations staff at the Livermore Airport. And he says, I saw a newspaper article recently that featured the special education students learning some job skills through one of your teachers at Granada High. I think that it is a great program you offer and valuable part of these kids' education. We're impressed with the way you have it structured, and it's obviously a well thought out plan. Thank you for providing it to these kids. The work teacher, Denise Watson-Lunn, has been bringing the students to the airport for a couple of years now and works very closely with them to teach them how to do various tasks with different businesses here on our field. Denise meticulously trains these kids in field safety, general maintenance, and even the care of aircraft. The students have become quite popular with the tenants and staff here at the airport and have earned a notable reputation for their work. To tell you the truth, we were somewhat skeptical at first, assuming the kids wouldn't be capable of providing any real benefit to us and would be more in the way than not. And as much as we would like to help these kids, we just didn't think it was a right fit. but your teacher is persistent, persuasive, and encouraged us to give your program a try. We really didn't give consideration to the potential capability for disabled persons in light of her program philosophy and how it worked. She assured us these students would not only be learning important marketable skills, but also providing us with benefits such as additional support for many of the day-to-day tasks here, bring us up for other high-priority field operations and aircraft support. I don't know if you're aware that some of the students have moved on through this program and now are successfully working for some of the local flight businesses here at another nearby field. If I were to offer one critique of your program, it seems that this year there have been some glitches in consistency and flexibility with the program, although Ms. Watson is good about communicating with us as and when the students will be out here. We do make arrangements for planning basis on their support. Several times this year, there's been a disruption in the schedule and uncertainty of the projection date to return to work due to what appears to be red tape issues of the FAA caliber interfering with what was a working system. We appreciate the effort of the teacher and students to meet our needs and providing additional students or sometimes staying to finish a project, adding a huge benefit to our support of the program. And I can imagine the irregular, unknown schedules sets a good example for the students of responsible employee expectations. However, that being said, I'd like to thank you again for providing such a great learning platform for these kids. Sincerely, Daniel Van Duzen. Okay, so those are the two letters of correspondence we have.
Superintendent Bowers, has there been any follow-up on that letter?
Yes, the second letter, there was follow-up. I actually called Mr. Van Duzen because I wanted to reassure him that we value the program, and I also wanted to find out sort of if there was more to it. And he had heard a rumor that the program might be disappearing and that some of the glitches might be because people were not cooperating. And what I assured him is that we have always had a policy in place about field trips. It hadn't always been implemented to in accordance with our policies in relation to the transitional students because they're over the age of 18, but they still are students under our guidance, and so we do have to have accurate record keeping and pre-approvals of every field trip for any work site. So it wasn't just unique to this area. We're actually implementing our policy with more fidelity, and we have a tracking system that's online now, so it red flags things. And so what I reassured him is that the district supports the program, the board certainly supports the program, and that the glitches that he experienced had to do with retraining and communicating with employees in our system on how to make it happen. I just approved, I think, 30 different trips for the rest of the year because you can do it far in advance. And so it just required more pre-planning on the part of the staff at the site. And I think we're in good shape because it's a great program. And now the processes should be smooth going forward. But it really is a matter of safety. We need to know where our students are, even if they're above the age of 18. And they're even, especially with disabled students, as well as the fact that if they're off campus and we had an earthquake and we don't know where people are, we have to have accountability for our staff and students for everyone's protection. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to skip up to action item 10A.
So this is by request. We've made adjustment in the agenda, so we'll ask Mr. Van Schack to present the item, which is ratification of contract settlement between the LEA and the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowers. Good evening, members of the board. Happy New Year. I am pleased to start the new year, actually, with an agreement that has been reached between the Livermore School District and the Livermore Education Association. We have a couple of members of the negotiating team here. Mr. Keith Pickering Walters is the chief negotiator for LEA. Ms. Jen Younger is here as well. And as I mentioned, I am pleased to announce that we have come to an agreement. Tonight I'll be asking the board to ratify the agreement. And I would like to take a couple minutes to talk about some of the substance of the agreement that we've come to this year. Among our modified articles would be Article 8, which deals with work year. We've changed language to allow scheduling flexibility for non-classroom teachers. This would include nurses, psychologists, counselors. Often their work years and work days don't meet the traditional hours of a teacher, and so we created some language that would allow flexibility in their scheduling, which is a benefit to both the employees and to their supervisors. We also modified Article 8, which is workday. We changed the language that would identify the scope of work for nurses as opposed to classroom teachers. Teachers are able to do emergency procedures when those are necessary, but it wouldn't be part of their regular program. So we identified some of those things. Additionally, we added transitional kindergarten to those sections that had previously just spoken about kindergarten. We added the transitional kindergarten a couple of years ago. We also modified Article 21. We augmented wages for this school year only by 1.08%, and if that number seems a little odd, it's because 0.54% is equivalent to one workday, and so that actually is equivalent to 2 workdays. This is done in part to recognize the additional work that's necessary because of Common Core, and so we're able to grant the teachers a 1.08 one-time salary increase for this year. We also modified Article 26, which has to do with leaves. We added a category for teachers on special assignment. We defined the return rights of those. Often teachers are reluctant to leave a position to take a position as a teacher on special assignment if they think they wouldn't be able to return to a position that they enjoy. So we made sure that we included those return rights as well as defining the details around which those jobs would be posted and hired. We modified Appendix 8. We actually created 2 calendars, 14-15 and 15-16, and those are based upon a pattern that we developed collaboratively so that we could look forward and schedule calendars for each year. I know for many of our parents and students and teachers, the challenges that they face not knowing when their vacations will be for the following year are significant, and so we wanted to create a pattern that would allow them to look down the road and see what where those vacations would fall. And so again, that speaks to start date, end date, holiday breaks, and such. We've also modified Appendix C, which has to do with procedures for determining extracurricular pay. We actually have a committee of people who look at extracurricular pay on an ongoing basis, and this year we've added middle school and elementary school representatives to that group because there are now positions at the elementary and middle school that would qualify. And finally, we created collaboratively an administrative clarification. As opposed to changing contract language, we will be sending out a clarification, and it has to do with how we spend our Wednesday collaborative time. And this statement would be to both administrators and to teaching staff that would remind them that collaborative time is there to engage in activities that are designed to improve academic achievement. Primarily through collaboration and professional development. Just again, a way to sort of reset the parameters of those Wednesdays without necessarily modifying contract language. It's considered administrative clarification. And those are summaries of the articles that we've modified for this 2013-14 school year. We would ask that you ratify this agreement between LEA and the Livermore School District so that we can move forward with the next round of negotiations that will begin shortly. Any questions I'd be happy to answer, or maybe Mr. Pickering would be able to answer questions as well.
Do we have any comments from the public? All righty. Any comments from the board?
I think it's, on the scale of things, it's gone delightfully smoothly this cycle, and look forward to an even keel, smooth negotiations in the future.
And I just want to thank all of those who participated in coming to what I think is a very good agreement, and I think both groups, I hope, will be very happy with the outcome, and I appreciate the effort that went into it.
And I too echo the smoothness of this and how it worked. It was nice. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we ratify the agreement between Livermore Education Association and the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District for the 2013-14 school year.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Oh my gosh. Mr. McLaughlin. Yeah, I went with Mr. McLaughlin. I try to combine their names. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No. Aye. Yeah. And none opposed. So we have a 4-0, and with one abstention or one absence.
President Roque, I did want to go on record as mentioning that we have other employee groups that have Me Too agreements in their contracts that would allow for salary increases that would mirror those that have been approved by for LEA.
Thank you. And moving back to information item, and the information item A.
So thank you, Mr. President. And next, we'll ask Mr. Van Schack, our Assistant Superintendent, to present information about the status of the Livermore Valley Charter School, which, as you know, we have assumed oversight over that group since July. And also, we have available in the audience, we have Mr. John Ye. He's our legal counsel that helps us with the charter school oversight, and he's here from Burke Williams Sorensen.
Thank you again, Ms. Bowers. This part of the show will be a quick review of the Livermore Valley Charter School and the oversight that we've been conducting. It's the halfway point of the year, and so this is an update. And just to remind you of how we've arrived at the place we are today. In July, we began our role as oversight agency. That was approved. The oversight was approved by the board last February. The district staff, in connection with Mr. Ye, created an oversight checklist. And it was in part a response to the last board meeting when the board suggested that some sort of checklist, a very comprehensive checklist, would be a good way to ensure that oversight is going smoothly. And so we did. We created a comprehensive list over 250 items, both from our Memorandum of Understanding and from Education Code. This oversight checklist was provided to the Tri-Valley Learning Corporation, their Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bill Batchelor, and their principal. And so they had a chance to review it and understand the parameters of what we're expecting. And this was divided into 7 areas of compliance. And I'm going to briefly go through each of these areas of compliance and let you know how LVCS has done in each of these areas. You can see these 7 areas here. General requirements, which is set up primarily and how they go about establishing themselves. There were 15 compliance items. Fiscal and business operations had 89 items. The education program had 40 items, facilities 19, governance 58, personnel 23, and student services. And you can see from this that there really was a focus, and in part based upon the board's response last year to their fiscal and business operation and their governance. And so that's where the primarily their items exist. And so starting with the general requirements, there were 15. They've met 14 of those items. From the one area that they were lacking, there was a request from action made by the district. In the area of fiscal and business operation, they've complied in 74 of the 89 areas. 3 have received information recently to bring that number to 77. 4 of the items that they are not getting compliance with would be met later on this year. And again, there were 8 requests for action, primarily around items such as approval of business expenses and things like that. And so a lot of it had to do with just changes in the way that they conduct their operations. In terms of their education program, there were 40 items. They were compliant in 37 of the 40. 2 will be met in the future, and those have to do with the local control funding formula and the plan that they have to put in place. And then there was 1 request for action to comply in the other area. 18 of the 19 areas were met in facilities by the deadline, and most recently I've received documentation of the others, so they're fully in compliance now in terms of facilities. In the area of governance, they were compliant in 45 of the 58 items, and again, recent documentation that was given to me met 2 areas. 1 would be met in the future, and there were 9 requests for action. And I'll talk a little bit about those toward the end. Personnel, they met 22 of 23 items, and it has to do with the process they go through to ensure the teachers are credentialed, items like that, and there was 1 request for action that came from that, and that had to do with approval of personnel by their board. In the area of student services, they've met 19 of 20 items, 1 to be met in the future, and that has to do with the processes that they engage in to ensure that they're meeting the demographic nature of the surrounding area. In summary, again, 264 items of compliance. They were found to be compliant in 229 of those areas. I created requests for action for all other areas. I do want to mention that the relationship between the district and the charter organizers and charter personnel has increased substantially since we've taken over. Very pleased with the cooperative nature and the fact that when we ask for information, they provided to us in a fairly timely manner. There are still general concerns about governance procedures and transparency of operations, and most of the requests for action had to do with them being more upfront with their dealings, putting salary schedules on the website, for example, making sure that they're meeting all the requirements of the Brown Act, making sure that they're very transparent with their public in terms of the dealings that they have with their students and with their teachers. And so I think we've had a very candid conversation, myself and Mr. Batchelor and Ms. Aderman, and I think they're comfortable with the expectations that have been placed upon them. So at the midpoint in the year, I'd say things are going very well. Again, we have had to make some requests for additional documentation, and so far I have no reason to believe that they won't be cooperative in all those areas. As we move forward, we will begin the process of monitoring their recruitment and enrollment process. This is a concern that the board shared last year, that their demographics did not match the surrounding community, and so they're in the process now of recruitment and enrollment for next year, and we'll see how that works. We'll be taking a look at the achievement data here in the middle of the school year and make sure that all of their significant groups are having their needs met, primarily those with special needs. We'll continue to review on a monthly basis their budget and their cash flow. And once again, I'll be making additional site visits in February and in April, just to check things out and make sure that facilities are in good shape and that they're providing the program that they've indicated they would be providing to their students. So that's where we stand now. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or if you have questions for Mr. Yeh, he's here as well.
Mr. Dunlap, any questions?
Thank you for the report. It's very thorough, and I appreciate the way you've organized that and outlined clearly the number of items that need action. So thank you very much. That's helpful.
What?
Yes. We continue to mention the failure or the difficulty in meeting the demographic ratio that matches the demographics of the district. This is something that has concerned the board and the community for years and years and years, 7 or 8 as it is. And the more I ponder this, the more I think we should consider that it's not for lack of effort on this part of the charter schools people, but it may be because of their practices in accepting legacy students, that there are so few openings for diverse students that without modifying their legacy student provision, they'll never get there. And I think we need to decide, we as a board, how seriously we want to approach this. Because if you can't get there from here, we either need to give up on this goal, which is in fact in the charter school law, or insist that some changes be made elsewhere in their governance model to see that they do meet the law.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin.
Yeah, that's hard to get your attention. Thank you. And I'm very happy to be part of you and to be working in the future with you. So good luck to all of you.
I'd like to say I like the format. It really shows you the scope of the oversight that we have to do. And I'm sure there's going to be additions to it. I saw that the new year brought in some new laws. But yeah, it brought a lot of clarity and also the trigger points of when you have to check them again, I guess, for lack of anything else. But yeah, thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Anybody from the public? No? All right, we'll move on to action item B, or information item B.
So thank you, Mr. President. Next, I'll ask our Chief Business Official, Mrs. Susan Kinder. She will explain the process for applying to be a member of our Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure M, and hopefully remind us of the many benefits, programs, and services for our students that are currently funded by the generous support of our community via Measure M.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Tonight we bring you a little update about our oversight. No, that's not it. I was reading that. We want to give you a little update on our recruiting for the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure M. We're trying to get the slide up. And what we need is some applications from some community members out there. Our parcel tax is currently known as Measure M, and it was passed in November 2008. It's $138 per parcel. Annually, we have an Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, which reviews the expenditures to make sure that the expenditures are in accordance with the ballot measure language. The eligibility to be on the committee is that they must live within the boundaries of Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. And the commitment is a 2-year term. So just to remind everybody what our parcel tax does for the school district, it was a 5-year measure. It started in July of 2010 and goes through June 30th of 2015. So we are coming towards the end of the commitment, and we are looking at hopefully maybe going out to renew the measure. But we want to remind everybody what it brings to the school district. First of all, we use it to attract and retain quality teachers and to maintain lower class sizes. We have been able to keep our class sizes at 24.5, and if you compare that to other districts, our surrounding districts, we're up to 30. So we have been very lucky that we have been able to maintain our lower class sizes. It also provides college and job career preparation at the high schools and middle schools, and it keeps art, music, and foreign language programs going. It also provides computers, infrastructure, and instructional technology upgrades. And we pay for our science specialists from the parcel tax. So if we didn't have our parcel tax, we wouldn't have our science specialists at our elementary schools. And then we also have high school counselors that are paid from our parcel tax. So that's a lot of great things for our schools, and so we would like to continue with that good stuff. So what we need is 5 members. So this is a lot of people that we need, and they need to be from various aspects of our society. So we need one that's a financial professional, one that is a parent or guardian of a student in our district, and we would like them to be active in a parent-teacher organization or school site council. We need one member that is a business person, I guess besides financial, and then 2 members of the community at large. So that's pretty far-reaching, I would say. And you can apply by going to our website, livermoreschools.com. There's an application on there. If you look under community on our website, and then you'll see parcel tax, and you'll be able to find the application. It is due by Friday, and I know that some of you at home may be watching this on Saturday. So if you have a burning desire to volunteer, you can still call, because if we don't get enough applicants, we may still need more. So please call on Monday, and we may still make an exception and accept your application. And then the new members will be seated at the January 21st board meeting. And that completes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Dillon, anything?
Well, if you're watching on Wednesday night, our board meeting, you can quickly call, and we do need people to participate to help us with the oversight of the Measure M. And so if you see this board meeting, we don't have many sitting in the audience here, but if you see this, take the opportunity to volunteer for service. And if it's on Saturday morning, like Mrs. Kinder said, you can call on Monday morning.
Right, and I should add that our phone number, because we don't have it up there, it's 925-606-3200.
I believe it's also on our website. You can check out our website too for that information.
Can you tell me about how many meetings there are, and
they usually meet between 3 or 4 meetings, and they last between 1 and 2 hours. and they usually happen on in the evening. So once we get the committee together, we will, the orientation meeting will establish when, the best time for those people would be to meet. But it's usually a really great bunch of people, and they have a good time doing.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're done with that. Thank you very much. The next item is public hearing for item C.
Thank you. So we'll ask Mr. Chris Van Track, our Assistant Superintendent, to provide an introduction to this public hearing prior to you opening the hearing, taking comments, and closing it. And this is on the important topic of a Reopeners for Successor agreement between the district and SCIU, our Service Employees International Union. I believe we have a representative here tonight. Caden is here.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. We begin the process of negotiations this evening. I've actually combined the two items to make this a little bit more efficient. So I've combined it into SEIU and the district initial proposals. Just to talk a little bit about process. The negotiations process has multiple steps, and the first step is to make public the areas that we plan to negotiate. This is known as sunshining. We accept public comments, and in the past what the district has done is allowed for 2 weeks, the next board meeting, for the public to comment if they so choose. We will allow public comment this evening, but again, over the next 2 weeks, if there's anyone who would like to comment, they have the opportunity to do that. The third step would be that the board would then approve the district's articles, and that would be at the next meeting. You're simply receiving the sunshine articles from SEIU. There's no approval process. We begin negotiations after that. We'll meet as many times as is necessary to come to agreement. SEIU and ourselves, and we'll begin that fairly soon. Once we do reach agreement, the union would do a ratification vote, and if they vote to ratify that agreement, then it would come to the board for vote, similar to the way the LEA negotiations ended this evening. So that's the process, and so this evening we begin the process by sunshining. And so SEIU's initial proposal is they will like to open all articles between 1 and 32, including appendices and table of contents. And again, this is for the contract that runs 2014 through 2017. And so that is their initial proposal. And so the superintendent would recommend that the board president open a public hearing to take any public comments.
Okay, so the public hearing is now open on item C, and I think Mr. Kratzner, you have a card up here.
So good evening, Superintendent and members of the board. I want to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Caden Kratzer. I'm field staff for SEIU Local 1021. I'm newly assigned to your jurisdiction, not new to this business. I'm here tonight to tell you that I look forward to bargaining and having productive negotiations with the district. That's all I wanted to say. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Anybody else? With that, we'll close the hearing, public hearing. And any comments from the rest of the board?
So this is basically the whole contract is open.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. But not for LEA. I mean, we've
Correct.
come to the end. We're starting a new one.
Correct. Yes, we haven't sunshined with LEA yet. So the second part of this would be that the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District would share their initial proposal, which is these are the articles that we have an interest in negotiating. That would include Article 6, which is workday and work week, Article 11, which includes leaves, Article 14, pay and allowances, and Article 16, which is health and welfare. So those are the areas that we would like to see some change to. Again, those would already be included in SEIU's proposal since they are opening the entire contract. So this is our initial proposal, and once again, I would ask the board president to open to public hearing if there are any comments that the public would like to make about our initial proposal at this time.
With that being said, I open up the public hearing for item D. Anybody like to speak? Okay, with that, I close the public hearing. And any other comments from the board? And nobody have any comments, so we're done with item D. Moving on to item E.
Thank you, Mr. President. So tonight we have Mrs. Cindy Alba, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and she is joined by Mrs. Susan Kinder, our Chief Business Official. They are going to present information to the board, kind of a recap of information that's been previously presented, and then seek your input and direction or guidance about the composition and formation of Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, advisory committees in our district.
Okay, good evening, Acting Board President, Trustees, Superintendent Bowers. So as Superintendent Bowers stated, this evening we will be asking for your direction as we move forward to put together our parent advisory committees, but provide a little bit of background on LCFF, the Local Control Funding Formula, and the Local Control Accountability Plan. So the Local Control Funding Formula is the new way the state is funding our schools. It's a new funding formula that, I'll do all this, Susan, and you can tell me when I don't do it correctly. It's a weighted student funding formula, and there's different weightings based on grade spans. There's also supplemental grants for English learners, low socioeconomic students based on free and reduced lunch, foster youth. And so what this funding formula did was eliminated many of our state categorical programs, not all of them, but combined them all into this one funding formula. There were also concentration grants included in the local control funding formula for high concentrations of students who are English learners and free and reduced students who receive free and reduced lunch meals, recognizing that these students may have greater needs in terms of their education. With the local control funding formula came another piece called the Local Control Accountability Plan. And so the plan was a way to, the key to it is transparency and involvement. So the plan is intended to establish annual goals for students and particularly subgroups or student populations in each of the state's priority areas. So throughout this plan, they're highlighting and they want us to be able to focus on the needs of our English learners, our students who are on free and reduced lunch, foster youth, and then any other significant subgroups within our school district. So again, it's about transparency and setting goals, sharing performance data, and it really, I think when we've talked about the LCAP before, we talked about that it really fits with a dashboard that we've been wanting to put together, and this kind of gives us a format. Well, we've kind of done it informally. I think this kind of formalizes it for us. It talks about state and local priorities, and the state has identified eight priority areas that are all set around providing quality educational opportunities for students. So this diagram here really kind of outlines the whole LCAP process. And again, this is review for us, but I think it provides a good overview. So when you're adopting your local control accountability plan, it is a 3-year plan that needs to be updated on an annual basis. It involves several different steps, and so there's a consultation piece where we need to consult with teachers, school personnel, students, our local bargaining unit. Then we also need to, again, this part about transparency, we need to present for review and comment the local control accountability plan to a parent advisory committee. And there are some requirements around that committee, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We also need to have another advisory committee, which is an English learner parent advisory committee. In our district, we need to have that group also. And then the superintendent or designee must respond in writing to comments that are received once this plan is presented to these committees. We also need to post the plan on our website, and we need to provide written feedback if people submit questions about the plan from the website. Then we need to respond in writing. We also have to have a public hearing. So again, you can see there's a lot of opportunities for people to provide input and ask questions. And then the plan is adopted at the same meeting where we are adopting our budget, because the two are very much tied together. That plan is then submitted to the County Office of Education, who there is then a process for them to review it and timelines for them to be able to give us feedback to make sure that we have followed all the processes. But tonight we're focusing on our advisory committee piece. So this diagram shows the 8 different priority areas. And again, we've talked about these before, but I can quickly go over them. So we talked about one of the areas is basic needs. Basic needs is pretty much complying with what is involved in the Williams settlements, that all of our students have textbooks, we have high quality teachers, and all of our students are NCLB compliant, and also that our facilities are meeting the facility requirements and are safe and for all of our students. Another piece is school climate, wanting to look at some of the areas that the state has identified, our suspensions, expulsions, and then of course we can add our own measurements to these, such as character ed and those kinds of things. Student achievement, we'll be looking at our new state assessments, and it may also include things like AP testing, students' preparation for college and career, local assessments. Student engagement will include graduation rates, dropout rates. We've also talked about including our local measures, which may be student involvement in activities at school, sports, and extracurriculars. We, of course, can add some of our own outcomes. Parent involvement is important, and so we'll have measures for parent involvement in our schools, which may include parent involvement in some of our committees, advisory committees that we have, but also things like back to school night, parent club, school site council. Course access is making sure that all of our students have access to all the required and all the opportunities that we offer in our schools. We are particularly interested on the course access, making sure that all of our students have equity in their opportunity to take higher level courses, that we're providing access to those courses for all of our students. And then the last area is implementation of the Common Core state standards, which is huge. And just are measuring our process of implementing, and that students are having access to those Common Core standards, and that's all of our students. So that's kind of a really quick overview of those 8 priority areas that must be addressed within the local control accountability plan. Within each one of those areas, we'll be needing to set goals for all of our different subgroups, as you can see up there on the slide. So we'll be setting goals, actions to achieve the goals, and then expenditures that are budgeted to implement those specific actions. As the Ed Code says, is that governing board shall consult with teachers, principals, administrators, other school personnel. Kind of went through those earlier in developing the plan. So this is a part where we need to be able to make sure that that we have transparency and that all stakeholders are involved in the process. The code also says that we would have parent advisory committee, and it clearly says that that committee is going to provide advice to the governing board and superintendent regarding the requirements of the article in terms of what needs to be included in the local control accountability plan. And within that committee, we need to make sure that we have representation of parents of students who are on free and reduced price meals, foster youth, and parents of English learners. It clearly says if you already have a committee like this within your district, you do not need to create a new committee. At this point in our district, we do not necessarily have a committee that meets this particular requirement. You also need to have an English learner parent advisory committee if you have enrollment that includes 15% English learners. Now, our district does have 15% English learners, so we would be required to have an English learner parent advisory committee. And again, it says a new committee is not required if we already have such a committee within our district. So again, the reason we need the committees is to ensure representation from all the different stakeholder groups, to ensure that we have two-way communication, that we're hearing from the from the stakeholders, but we can also provide information back to the stakeholders. And in looking at what's required in the local control accountability plan, the plan must be aligned. They talk about it being aligned with site plans. And so site representation would be important in the process of developing the LCAP and advising on it because of that correspondence that we need with our school goals. In fact, the draft template that the State Board of Education is looking at, they had an initial draft that went to their board in November, another one that isn't changed a lot, but it is going to the board, the state board in January. The final approval is March. But within that template, as I was looking through it, it clearly says in there that the LCAP should be shared with and input requested from school-level advisory groups, such as School Site Council, English Learner Advisory Committee, pupil advisory groups, to facilitate alignment between the school site and district-level goals and actions. And this will be important as we look at what we're thinking may be one way for us to form our committees. We do have several parent committees already within the district. Our DLAC, which is our District English Learner Advisory Committee. We have a parent committee for our migrant parents, for another one for Title I parents. We have our school site councils at all of our schools, and we have our a parent communication and information council. The one committee that I will draw your attention to is our District English Learner Advisory Committee. We have a very strong and high-functioning and well-established District English Learner Advisory Committee. This committee would meet the requirements for the English Learner Advisory Committee that we need for the LCAP. There is representation on our district committee from all of our sites because all of the site ELAC, their English Learner Advisory Committees at the site, have one representation that sits on this district committee. This committee is also they truly are facilitating their own meetings. They meet, they've already had, I think, 3 meetings this year. I think they're getting ready for their 3rd or 4th meeting. They meet with our staff to help put the agenda together, but they are a group that we believe would meet the requirements and are like I said, a well-established and a high-functioning group. And I will just say for myself, when I first came to the district, and I know it's been a while now, but I was so impressed with this group and how knowledgeable they are of what is going on in the district and the advocacy that they do for their students. So then, so our thought would be that what we would be suggesting is that DLAC could possibly be the English Learner Advisory Committee. So one approach to putting together the other parent advisory committee would be for to be able to put forth or take application from the stakeholder groups for the board to review and approve. And again, because of this tie-in with the sites and wanting to have that, making sure all of our stakeholders are represented, but also making sure we have a tie-in with the sites, we would see that possibly the group would be facilitated by myself and Susan Kinder, because there is a financial side to this and there is an educational services side to the process. But we would have suggesting one representative from each of the school site councils. Again, it could be an application process. It could be the school site councils put names forward. But again, that way we would have that connection between the school site councils and this district level group. We need student representation, so a student from each of our comprehensive high schools. And again, the process for that could be an application process. It could be their leadership putting forth names, however we want to do that. And then one representative from each of our employee groups. So again, it doesn't, the requirement is not that we have representative from these employee groups on the committee. We need to consult with them. But it does make sense that we're going to have all the stakeholders together and everybody's getting the same information and working together. So one representative from each of the employee groups. Again, the process for having those one representative could be, again, application process. They put forth names. Again, that would be what we're asking for advisement and direction tonight. and any gaps in representation, because again, we need to make sure that on this committee we have parents of English learners, parents of students who are on free and reduced lunch, parent or guardian of foster, students in foster care. And then we would also want to make sure that we have representation, I say we, it's up to you, it's your group, from also to make sure we have representation from all of our predominant ethnic subgroups, and also our thought would also be special ed. When we look at our school site councils, we probably have representation.
Certainly it's a large component. And then the budget pieces will be the pieces that even if we chunk it out, we may not be able to fill that in completely, but at least the narrative and the areas of focus could be definitely shared along the way. Because I think one of the biggest learning curves for any member of the committee is a lot of the majority of our budget goes into staffing, which is sometimes not necessarily as discretionary as people might think when they join a committee like this. I mean, there's a lot of staffing costs that are for existing programs that if the committee continues those, if the committee after the feedback says, oh yes, the QEIA is a wonderful program, we want to continue these things, and the board agrees, that when you lock those things in, a lot of funds are just automatically associated with things we already do.
I think that as soon as we see a template, we'll be able to give more input into what you're looking for, I think. It's kind of up here. It's up here in the cloud, like everything else that we do with data. But the other thing, too, is I'm hoping that this is going to be a big thing at first, that we're going to be able to contract it to running smoothly. We're building this bureaucracy that I don't particularly want to see this large in 3 years. But it'll be smoother running, and information will be able to flow a little bit easier, but contracting it a little bit and expanding it when you need to.
We really anticipate from, because, the final template will be out in March, and then it all has to be signed, sealed, delivered at the end of June. It's a tight timeline. We'll be doing some work in advance, but we really expect that the state will be tweaking the template. And at one point, we did hear that some of the data would be repopulated for us, and so I don't imagine that happening this year, but I do think there'll be some changes along the way. When I look at the template, it looks like a document that will be worthwhile in terms of really a strong measure for our district, but also one that won't be it will be easy to work with. I mean, updating it and really being able to look at what's working, what isn't working, and so I'm actually thinking that it's going to be a good piece that will add to our accountability in our district.
Great.
So for the I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just wondering for the committees. I'm hearing that existing committees. So I guess are we thinking on the DLAC side? Are we thinking that could work for our English Learner Committee, or?
I'm assuming that's what
I think that would be,
Dr. Dunlop is
especially
saying.
you say that it's a well-functioning committee.
Absolutely.
We don't want to mess up a good game.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to duplicate the same thing like you'd said earlier. So.
And then for the second committee, one of the things, there's certain areas that we wanted to include, and some districts are saying geographic areas to reduce the size. But what we have found in Livermore particularly, each site really has a unique feel and sense, and some have extremely unique programs like the IB program or the dual immersion. And so to lump all Title I schools together or all schools at one end of the city doesn't always make sense, as well as the fact that there's a lot of economic disparities in our district. And so our sense was, because we have such strong site attachments, that it would be better to ask for one person from each site initially, and ideally there would be someone coming forward. If more than one came forward, we wanted to get some guidance from the board about how would you prefer that we narrow that down.
Well, I would suggest one, because you do need minority groups represented, but you could have a person at large from each school site and an additional person from some minority segment of the school. And if you think about that, that would potentially give you most of the could give you most of the representation you need, but you may need to select a few others to, to fill that out. But, that's one of the hard parts is how do you get all of the representation they're asking for here? But one is, someone to represent the site at large, and then they have to provide someone of a minority group from their school site.
I wouldn't be hesitant to ask community members, if you've got a good lead on somebody who's been active and hasn't come forward, go out and find them and ask them if they want to be part of it.
2 people from each side seems like a lot. But on the other hand, I am proposing that the high schools might have 2 people because there's more kids there with more programs and more special interest groups. So just consider, you might need to wait to see who says I'll come for 6 meetings.
And one of the recommendations at the high school level was to have an adult, but also a student, because as you can see, they're so articulate, they have a point of view, and then they also are representing another group. And so it's not only a great experience for them and their own leadership and growth, it's also very refreshing and educational for us to hear their voice, which I don't think that they've actually, we do have students on school site council at the high school level, but this would be just a really, I think, an enriching experience for them. That was one thing we thought about at the comprehensive high school.
So one thought would be to have the school site councils, have them nominate somebody to be on this committee, and we could also let those school site councils know. And we also are looking for representation from these different groups and see what it is that, what the composition is when it comes forward. And then we could have a couple from the high schools.
Well, maybe the student from the high school is adequate. Okay. It's hard to know. Until we see if just jillions of people want to do this, or if we were hard pressed to get 10. We just.
Well, my thought would be to have a committee at the high school of kids, and one person from that committee brings it up to LCAP. But I don't know how successful that would be. But
well,
I think a lot of the times, like the leadership classes and the ASB cabinet themselves could kind of serve as the committee, because they're the group of students most involved in like most of the idea of how their ASB funding is being used. Most of the time, like if you ask a student who wasn't involved in leadership or ASB, they probably wouldn't have that great of an idea. So you could probably use that as like a pre-existing committee.
Good idea. Anything else?
I was just going to say, now you have 1,000 ideas. You can narrow them down to one that works for you.
I agree with Haley that the best way to go about this is going to the leadership classrooms, because picking a student from that area, automatically they would be consulting with all the other students along the process of it. So there would be a lot of voices represented by just choosing one person from that group, as that's the overall goal of being in student council.
Good.
Just in trying to kind of pin some things down, what I want to make sure we're hearing, the majority of the board is supportive of sharing the template with the board in the Friday packet and in the different iterations, because we know it's draft. And also they are asking on the January 16th meeting, I think anyone can go up to the state and sit in a tent and then go and speak to the board, the state board, if you have concerns. Also, they're sharing the baseline data as we collect it, and then brainstorming additional measures in the 8 areas and taking that input from the board. Sanctioning the DLAC committee as the committee, so probably bringing them to a meeting and formally giving them their charge, or however that works, or having a board representative go and give them their charge, something like that. And then Trustee White has an opportunity for them to have specialized training, so that would be also helpful. And then so far as the composition of the committee, it sounds like soliciting at least one adult member, ideally from school site council, but they from the school site council at the high school level, also a student from the leadership. I think we're on the same page on that. And then the consciousness of making sure that the underrepresented groups are also part, and so either filling in those gaps or asking from the school site councils if that group could be selected. Because if you think about it, At some of our schools, it will be the English learner group who might be the minority group, but in numbers, but then they'll be represented on DLAC. But then if you look at Maryland, it's actually the Caucasian English only family that's the minority group. And so it could be that because we have this disparity, that it'll all average out in the end. And then also we're seeking representation from each of our bargaining units or existing management group, LMA, classified confidentials. And so would the board want them to self-select each group, or do you want to have input in that, or do you want us to vet that, or just managers choose one? LEA gives us one.
I would be for a self-select. I wouldn't see.
But it needs to be the same person to each meeting. It's an individual
Right.
that gets selected, not
Right.
not a teacher who can happen to come tonight.
And there's not a stipend associated with it. It's an honorary committee appointment. Does that cover it? And then Cindy wants to write it.
I'm
with Susan.
dying to write this.
And I get to respond to the questions, so I know my role. And then informally, I do think I agree with what each of you have said about the importance of keeping you in the loop along the way. We learned from math plan and things like that, that if we get too far ahead and it's fully baked, then we might not be aligned. And so I think the more often we share along the way, the better. And it's worked well for us with negotiations and other big decisions and big things that are happening. So I think that's a pretty good plan. Does that give you enough guidance?
I believe so.
So by next Thursday?
Thursday? Sure.
Okay. And you're on tape.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other input? Anybody from anybody else? Great. All right, next thing is our consent items. Anybody want to pull anything for discussion? I would like to mention to thank everybody who has been giving gifts to the district, and we definitely appreciate that, as do all the students, and keep on giving. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve consent items A through H.
And I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. And abstain one. Absent one. Abstain. And our board member reports. Start this direction. You have anything?
Want to make a report?
Okay.
Okay.
This is why.
I just want to say that I really enjoyed the play at Livermore High before Christmas. Everybody was having a really good time when I was there. And one of the things that I learned at the CSBA conference when I went to the bond sessions was that I talked to one of the fellows from Poway, and you know Poway is the example of a problem with bonds. And this fellow said that after they had realized that they needed to know more about bonds, the superintendent found a consultant who came in and gave them Bonds 101. And it occurs to me that might be a good idea for us. They said it was, and he did say it was a really good, it wasn't just somebody who droned on about finance. And, this board is a capable board. We could learn either neurosurgery or rocket science, depending on what we needed to, but at this point, we need to know bonds. So I would like to ask that the superintendent explore this, find out if it was really as great as this fellow thought, how much it costs, if there's somebody he had to travel, maybe he is from the north. I can get you more information than that. And we could even invite our business community to come to see what we're talking about. I mean, it's not just we six that need to know about bonds. It's the staff, because they're representative to the community, and it's the people who are going to have to pay for the bonds.
I would agree with you, Mrs. White. I sat in on some of those bonds seminars, and there were so many questions after the fact that we needed another class just to finish up the class we just had. So I would agree with that.
And Dr. Dunlop, is that something you'd also like us to pursue?
Not on bonds, but I would like to talk about, take a little bit of time.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We're just asking if you want to go on with the The bond?
Yeah, I don't have anything on bond.
Okay. Philip.
So anyway, the math counts competition, which we have every year in the district, is this Saturday. All of the members present are welcome to come, and we won't insist that you participate in the competition. But it's very enjoyable, and actually it shows off really well the capabilities of our middle school students, and some of them performing well beyond what would be covered in the classroom in terms of their math capabilities. And I would like to again point out that the Livermore Valley Education Foundation is providing funding for that, as well as the Science Odyssey as part of their projects to fund the arts and athletics and so on. They do fund academic activities such as the Math Counts competition and the Science Odyssey. But anyway, if you want to see some exciting work in math, you can show up at Granada High School. It'll start promptly at 9, but those are the quiet times when students are working problems on the table. At about 12:30, they'll be doing the countdown round, and that's where we always invite Ms. Rogie to come and see if he can keep up with the students. 45 seconds to do a problem. Sometimes I can't read the problem in 45 seconds, but they manage to read it and get answers in 45 seconds, sometimes 10. So it's kind of interesting to watch. But that will be this Saturday, and so anyone who would like to come is more than welcome. And you can watch and be amazed. And with that, I will finish.
And I'll waive my time. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So I hope everyone had a restful and festive holiday break. Just prior to the break, I had the pleasure of attending many holiday musical performances featuring our talented students. Some of the highlights were the treble choir that sang at the holiday luncheon for the district and board members present. Also, the Arroyo Seco's choir had a command performance for the California Association of School Business Officials luncheon, and they actually received a $500 stipend, I guess, for their classroom and McDonald's gift cards. So that was an exciting thing to have them showcase for all of Northern California business officials. The Rancho kindergarten students caroled throughout our district office, and they were adorable. And then I went over to Granada High School, and the AP Calculus students sang about mathematics to holiday carols, and I think there might be a copy at your desk. So that was quite something. I have it on my cell phone as well. We were videotaping, and it was very clever how they integrated the arts and the math. And so, of course, Math Counts is this Saturday, and I hope that everyone can attend. It's really lovely to see the mathletes get the accolades of Olympic athletes for their prowess in math. So it's very exciting. So I hope you do come to that. We need to fill the high school with as many people for that event as we do for the wrestling matches, right? I think so. Okay, I wanted to also, on behalf of Chief Technology Officer Jeff Warner, report to you that the Common Core technology rollout has begun. Over 2,700 Chromebooks have been configured. They're set up in the carts. They're being delivered this week and there are teacher tech leaders from each school site that will receive them. And we have our new teacher on special assignment, Ravi Prabhala, who took Eric Taylor's place. He just started this week. And so we will start that initial training. We have a training section on SharePoint, and there are network upgrades in progress to prepare for them, and so that we can make sure that we're completely prepared for Common Core testing. This afternoon, I had the opportunity to participate in the Chevron Media Executives Tour and speak about the successful educational partnerships with Chevron in support of STEM. And when I received the invitation, it came from the local Chevron folks, but at this event, there were representatives from the international Chevron level of all media executives. So it was quite an interesting group, and we were still recruiting. Many of them, by the end now, want to move to Livermore and enroll either their current children or their future children in our schools. So that was exciting. But basically, they were looking at our project Lead the Way. They were looking at our Green Engineering Academy. They were looking at some of the efforts that we've made in partnership with the city and industry, such as Watson and Bridgelux, in relation to the internships that our students had and opportunities. And it was perfect timing because I received a holiday card from Layla Hassan, who's one of our star Livermore High graduates from the Engineering Academy, telling me that she did pass with flying colors her first sessions at UC Davis and taking a very high-level STEM-related curriculum. She also is in the engineering club, and she's being pursued by PG&E for an internship this summer. And so it was just perfect timing for her to write that card to me that I could then share with them that this is, from a real student who went to the program, what's possible. And then I just wanted to follow up and reiterate a little bit from Mrs. Susan Kinder's report about Measure M. We do need to continually thank the community for their support of the vital programs and services that are funded by Measure M. Our counselors, our lower class size technology, science specialists, middle school electives, college career coursework at the high school level. The board may be considering going to the voters to extend that current level of support so that we can preserve that high quality program and service that we provide, and we've become accustomed to it, and we should never take it for granted. So there will be in the month of January, this month, a phone poll or a survey that might be going out to determine the level of support for continuing Measure M. And also to look at a future facilities bond, which you mentioned bond is on the radar. And so we want to acknowledge that definitely the people in our community understand that when they give locally, that we locally reap the rewards. And so we want to give plenty of opportunity for people to invest locally and see the benefits for our students. So there'll be more on the radar about that. There'll be some meetings at each school site to look at facilities needs, and also a poll going out in the community, a survey that will determine the level of support to hopefully continue these vital programs and services. We know education is a top priority, and we feel really fortunate with the start of the new year that so many good things are happening, and we're positioned very well to continue them. So thank you.
And with that, we are adjourned at 8:59.